Wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ Envy, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the Guy. We are the Breakfast Club. We got a special guest on the line. He just announced he's running for mayor of New York City. Ladies and gentlemen, Eric Adams. Welcome, brother.
Thank you, DJ Envy. Good to see you, Charlamagne and Sister Angela Yee. How are you?
He disrespected you. He disrespected you a little bit, brother Adams. It should be Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams.
Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams. So why jump into this race, man? You ain't got enough on your plate right now, man.
He said he announced it a while ago. He didn't just announce it.
We have been running for a while, and what's deep. This is actually a 20-plus year journey for me. A lot of people don't know Bill Lynch. He was the former deputy mayor under David Dinkins. And when I told him 20-something years ago that our city was dysfunctional, and just as we were able to turn around the unsafety issues here, I wanted to run for mayor. He says, Eric, you have an associate's degree. Go get your bachelor's. I went and got my master's instead. He says, you are a sergeant, you need to at least be a lieutenant. I didn't stop there, I became a captain. He said, you have to get elected to become a lawmaker. I went to Albany, became a state senator. And he said, become a borough president or a congressperson. As you know, I'm the borough president. So other folks just hopped in this race. I've been doing this for 20-something years. I got 23 journals of making entries every night on how we're going to fix this city. I'm ready to lead.
Let's talk
How many
about
people
it.
are running for mayor in New York City now? Because you're right, it is a lot of people in this race now.
89.
You know what? I lost track.
Like 89.
It's a lot. I think we're up to about 20 now. I lost track.
What's the greatest aspect of change you think NYC needs? Because you said you've been writing down in your journal for the past 23 years, you said?
Mm-hmm. Yes, if not longer.
But last year is a year like we've never seen. That's kind of crippled the city in a lot of ways. So what do you think is the greatest aspect of change New York needs?
In New York or the
New York City?
Okay, New York City. Just dead on, brother. With dysfunctional, brother, and we don't want to acknowledge that. Here's what we do in our city, and this is what I must get through to New Yorkers. The taxpayers are doing their job. Our agencies are continually doing the same things the same way because we're used to doing them. And one agency creates a crisis and another agency fixes the crisis that's created. And I know, Sister Yee, you talk about health all the time. We have a Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. Think about this, that spends millions of dollars to fight childhood obesity, childhood diabetes, childhood asthma. Yet the Department of Education, they feed our babies 960,000 meals a day that cause what? Childhood obesity, childhood diabetes, childhood asthma. That doesn't make sense. Or how do you have almost 30% of Rikers prison population is dyslexic? 30%. We don't do dyslexia screening in our educational system, which is only $2,000 per school, so we can identify dyslexia, give the children the assistance they need so they don't go on these corners and sling drugs and carry guns. We are putting people in these positions. That is what I'm saying as a dysfunctional city. And not only, Brother Charlamagne, it's not only New York. Go across America, Chicago, right, Detroit, Atlanta, Compton. The same people are being treated the same way, and we need someone that just needs to say, "Listen, we can't function anymore like this."
When you talk about health, because I do want to bring this up because I know you've had your own issues with health, and now you're a vegan, and so I want to talk about that journey and what you went through, and even what your experience was like growing up in New York City, what kind of food you were eating in the schools, and how that affected you.
Listen, that's why this journey is so important, and I say this all the time, I'm just a straight up blue collar guy, I went to school every day, Sister Yee, as a child, probably between 13 and 17, with years. I carried a garbage bag full of clothing to school every day because my mom thought we were going to be thrown out and she did not want us to be embarrassed. And, the food, she worked in Amstead Daycare Center, where she was a food service worker, low pay. And, we ate what the children in that school ate because mom had Tupperware, she brought the food home to us. If there were no leftovers, you know what? We were going to just eat flapjacks. And so those struggles really put you in this place that when you went through a lot, you need a mayor that has gone through a lot to help people who are going through a lot. And the food we were served in our schools led to the chronic diseases that materialized when I had diabetes. You don't get diabetes overnight.
That's right.
You know, when I woke up and I couldn't see, lost my sight, permanent nerve damage in my hands and feet, the doctor said, Eric, you're going to be blind in a year, and you're going to lose some fingers and toes. And it wasn't until I identified the food, some of those juices you sell at your juice bar, and what you talk about, it's the food that I was able to turn around. And that's what we need to do in our communities to deal with these chronic diseases that we are facing.
Were you ever overweight?
You would have looked at me, I was always muscular built, I thought, but in reality, it wasn't. So I was, at most, my weight was 210. But you know, sometimes we think that muscular built is healthy when you're hiding the fat under it. Now my body's slim, I'm down. You know, I don't have a six pack. I have a case, man. My body's tight now.
Oh, go ahead.
Now, how do you the words I'm looking for, I guess, is make the community comfortable with police and make police comfortable with the community. You know, is that a possible way? I was even thinking, you know, even the other day when I the two officers that were killed in Florida, I was talking to a police officer the other day, and he said, you know, nowadays police officers are scared. You know, before, when you serve a warrant with your gun out because you never know what's on the other side of the wall. But he said nowadays, you know, they're almost scared to serve a warrant with their gun out because they don't want the public to think that they're being too aggressive. You know, so how do you make sure that, you know, everybody's okay with each other?
Right. No, great question. And the powerful term, envy, is trust. Trust. We have to institute trust in our system. And listen, I am unapologetic about the prerequisite to prosperity is public safety. We have to be safe. And it doesn't matter. I don't want an innocent person being shot by an over-aggressive police officer. And I don't want an innocent person shot by a gangbanger. That young girl that was walking with her dad in the Bronx, and someone pulled up and shot her while she was holding his hand. That's unacceptable to me. Just as is unacceptable what happened with George Floyd. And people want to put you on one side or the other. And I'm not playing that game because I've knocked on doors of family members who lost loved ones, and they did not cry any differently if I said the cop shot them or some gangbanger shot them. A mother should not lose her child, a dad should not lose their child. So how do we rebuild trust? And there are many ways we can do it. Number one, we need to change the ecosystem of public safety. And this heavy-handed, everything is police, everything is 911. That can't be it. One of the most powerful positions in the city is a precinct commander, yet many people don't know about him. He has a 300-person team, and he determines what happens in that geographical area of the city. I say the community should interview and determine who their precinct commander should be. The mayor took half a step towards that location when he said that the precinct council would do it, but I said no, it should be youth, it should be clergy leaders. They should interview him, look at his past record, and say, you are fit for our community or not. And that is one area of building trust, and there are other things we can do.
Eric, I hate when people say rebuild trust between police and Black people. There's never been no trust between police and Black people. You go back to the origins of police, they were slave catchers. So how can you rebuild something that never was? I hate when people say that.
Yeah, and you're right, brother. And the origin of policing is right. From slave catching in the South to up here in the North to protecting property. But I remember Officer Smitty, we used to call him, that I knew as a child, you know, and how I trusted him. And when he came to our house, or he had to talk to us, there was a relationship. Number one, he was an African-American officer. He came from the community and he understood. That's the trust that I'm talking about. And that is part of one of the goals, is that in New York City, we have a peace officer, P-E-A-C-E, and we have a police officer. I say, let's look at our peace officers. After 2 years of being there, let's promote them in the police department. Why is that important? Over 85% of them are Black and brown. Large number of them are women. 100% of them live in New York City. Right now, over 30% of our department lives outside our city. You can't build trust with people who don't respect you because they don't understand you and they don't see the diversity of your city.
Yeah, I
Now,
think you
Eric,
can
you
build
also
trust in
have
an
a-
individual. Hold on, I think you can build trust in an individual, but not a system.
I believe you can. I believe you can. I believe that if our recruits, you know, remember, you got 30% of the people who are coming to this city and policing us who probably never even went to school with a person of color, never had a Black doctor, a Black accountant, never been in a community where you had a Spanish speaking person. Now you drop them into a city that their predispositions are based on what they saw on TV or what they read in the paper. That is a terrible mix. But if our academy class, part of their exercises is to have a brother like you to come in and talk about, listen, some of you guys are going to go through some mental health issues because you're going to be seeing violence all the time. That's vicarious trauma. That's real.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the types of real academy classes we must have, not this sterilized academy class that we are experiencing. So we're producing a failed product from the start.
Well, I do think you yourself have a very unique story, just how you even became a police officer, because before that, when you were younger, you actually were a victim of police brutality yourself. So how do you get over that and actually become a police officer? What was the process behind those thoughts?
And it was traumatizing. And I really think till today, my brother has experienced, you know, some emotional issues from that. And you know, we were beat repeatedly by cops in the 103rd precinct, the same precinct that Sean Bell was killed in. And I wanted nothing to do with cops. Every time I saw that old sitcom, Adam 12, I would relive the beating. Every time I heard a siren, every time I saw a police car drive by, you know, it never goes away. You know, I was experiencing PTSD. Arthur Miller was killed by a chokehold. And a group of civil rights leader, G2AUC, Reverend Herbert Daughtry and others, they came to me and 12 other brothers and said, listen, I was part of an organization called the National Black United Front. We were a civil rights organization fighting against police abuse and other things, Randolph Evans shooting. And they came to us and said, you guys are going inside the police department and you're going to fight from within. And I was like, man, are you smoking crack? What? I'm not going in the police department. And I just had so much respect for them that I decided to go in, started first to chair of the Grand Council of Guardians, an African-American fraternal organization, then 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement Who Care. And, you know, we fought hard on this issue. You know, so when people talk about Amadou Diallo, I didn't read about him. I know his mother. I know his sister, his family. I was with Johnny Cochran in the Louima case. I talked to Louima 2 weeks ago. You know, these are people I know because throughout my entire 22 years in the department, you know, from being shot at by some unknown person while I was off duty to having them, I was under surveillance for a long time by the police department. I just learned through a federal trial that they would follow me for years. To trying to fire me at the end of my time in the police department. You know, I met them head on and I had some strong brothers and sisters in the department with me. And we carried out our mission of going into the department and fighting from within. And so I am so pleased to see this new energy in the streets. It's a continuation of laying on that 103rd precinct floor of being beaten. And we are still fighting for the justice we deserve.
And for people that don't know, the 103rd precinct is Hollis, Queens, Jamaica Avenue, the same area where I'm from, Ed Lover, Run DMC, J Master J, 50 State a little bit, Steve Stout, and all that area over there.
There you go.
Question.
But I want to point out, before you ask your question, Envy, one of the most, I received a lot of endorsements for my mayor's run, but one that, you know, just gave me chills took place 2 days ago. Formerly incarcerated, exonerated brothers came together and they said, listen, man, we've been watching you. When I went up to Attica and when I went to Sing Sing and other prisons, and I was walking through those halls when I was a state senator, you had brothers behind the cells yelling, yo, that's that brother from 100 Blacks, man, you know? And to have these brothers who were formerly incarcerated come out and say, this is the brother we want to be the mayor of the city of New York. Out of every endorsement I ever received, that was the most important, because real recognizes real. And they know that although I was in that blue uniform, I was no different than the brothers who were wearing blue jeans and were being treated unfairly by this police department.
I wanted to ask, what are your thoughts on, I look at areas like Florida, I look at areas like Georgia, I look at areas like Virginia and Texas, where civilians are allowed to carry handguns, but in New York, of course, it's not, and sometimes I feel like, the bad guys always have the up on you, you know what I mean? Because they can run in your house, you're not allowed to have a handgun. They can run in your car, they can rob you, you can burglarize. What do you think about if New York will ever be a state where you are allowed to carry? And
Too
that is
densely
a good idea.
No, I don't think it is. Just too densely populated. It's just the population is so dense, and you discharging a weapon under stress takes so much training, because by the time you pull it out, you unholster that gun and you start shooting. It happens in such a rapid pace that too many innocent people will be shot. Now, if you're a business owner, a store owner, if you have a justifiable reason to have it, if you have what's called a target permit, I support that. But there's a difference between a target permit and a carry permit. Carry permit is like what happens in some of those states you are talking about, where you're able to carry it all the time. If you're talking about folks having a firearm in their homes was locked unless they need it, that's one thing. A target permit where you go to the range, that's another thing. But when you're talking about just open carry permit, it's difficult to do that in New York City because of the dense population that we have.
That sounds good, but police don't be thinking about that when they pull out and disarm. Sean Bell, 50 rounds. So why does that logic that you just explained, why that don't apply to them?
Because think about it for a moment. Every year, they go back 2 times a year to go through what's called the fun house, which is a very stressful situation of when to shoot, when not to shoot. They go through training, what's called a FATS machine, that tell you when to shoot, when not to shoot. They go through this very series of events that really have you deal with your muscle memory that they talk about on how, when to shoot, when not to shoot. They could do better because many officers come with their negative predispositions of just looking at the ethnicity of someone and feel they're a bad guy, but there's continuous training. It's not a one-stop, it's not a one-time that you go through the academy, learn how to discharge your weapon, and then that's a wrap. You are constantly being reinforced. Now, and I know that even when people receive training, their biases can get in the way of that training. And that's why training must be real. It can't be this picture perfect sort of training. People need to identify that they have biases.
Yeah, I did read an article last year that talked about how New York police officers rarely fire their guns. So to your point, that's right. But I wanted to ask you about, Brother Adams,
Yes.
My problem with New York, for the amount of money that we pay in taxes, for the amount of money we pay in tolls, parking tickets, all this money this city makes, and it looks terrible. Why New York don't look like Dubai? How do we get there?
And that's what you're
LA
saying.
or some of these other places in the States, like New York.
Dallas,
New York,
Charlotte. New York look terrible. It's dirty. Like, how do we take New York into the 21st century?
Love it. And that's exactly what this campaign is about. It's about, how do I take your tax dollars and make sure that we are providing the services that you are paying for? And we're not. I like to say, it's a blue collar mindset. Blue collar people, they take every dollar they earn, they put food on the table for today, and they invest in the future. We have a city where we have too many white collar mayors that believe that our tax dollars is like their trust fund babies. They can spend it with their bottomless pit. And that's not the reality. We could run this city better. Boston has something called City Score, where it's a real-time model of how do you gauge the success of your city. We can't continue to wait until the end of the year and say, have we reached our targets or have we not reached our targets? We have to run this city in a real-time model. That's something that my computer technology background I'm familiar with, and that is what we need to do throughout this entire city.
Now, this race is a little different this year, right? Because we're having a different type of election. It's in June, so it's earlier than normal, but it's also not just voting for one person. So how is that working? I think they're ranking them like your top 5 picks when you vote.
Yes, so true. And it's so important. You know, I was a supporter of ranked choice voting with one caveat that you must educate the public. You know, how do you tell my mom at 85 years old that we're going to change the voting system without giving her the proper education? How do you do someone with English as a second language? You speak Spanish or Chinese or Urdu. We need to make sure the public is educated. So what's going to happen this year? Number one, they have early voting. It starts June 12th, and the actual primary is June 22nd. But you also will rank your candidates. You'll pick who's your number 1, your number 2, 3, 4, all the way down to 5. But in addition to that, if someone goes into the polling place and say, I'm going to rank Eric 5 times or 4 times or 3 times, that ballot is invalid. So if you don't give people proper education, then they can actually make a mistake and lose their vote instead of receiving their opportunity to vote.
Why they changing it? Like, I don't understand. I thought you pick your candidate and that's it. So why do I have to rank 1 and then 2 and then, like, why?
The argument for it is that what happened in New York City mayor's race, if you don't receive 51% of the vote, I think it was 40% of the vote, there would be a runoff. And that runoff costs millions of dollars. So they said, instead of having that runoff, let's do everything right away and let's allow people to do the ranking. Some people argue that it allows people to have, they don't have to vote for the best of two evils or best of the 2 candidates. It widens the field. So there are many arguments and conversation for and against. I was supportive of the concept. I want to make sure people are able to vote and have the opportunity to do it in a way that their votes are not going to be in any way invalidated.
Who made up that?
Do they do that anywhere else, or is this just is that like something they do other places, or is this something completely new?
San Francisco is one place I am aware of, and it was to answer your question, DJ MV. I think you were going to ask. It was a charter revision. It was put to the voters, and the voters voted on it, stating that they wanted this change in how we do our elections. But it's in San Francisco also.
I have a question too. You know, when Mayor Bloomberg was the mayor,
yes,
how was Mayor Bloomberg able to be like, you know what, I ran 2 terms, I think I'm going to run 3 terms? How is he able to change the rules like that? I never
White privilege. No.
That's like Donald Trump saying, you know what, I'm gonna run another term. F this. You know what I mean? Like, how?
It should not have happened. It should not have happened. And I believe it was the death of Christine Quinn's election because that should not have happened. Number one, it went to the voters, as you were just asking about ranked choice voting. The voters voted it down a 3-term. They voted it down twice. And he then went to the city council, and the city council used their maneuvering to say, okay, we're going to vote for it within the city council. And you're right, he had that level of privilege that he felt he was able to do it. And he basically, not only did he change it, DJ MV, but he says, after my election, we're going to change it back to be only 2 terms. So you're dead on, you know.
Brother Adams, what you said about the runoff, that's definitely going to happen this year, only because, I see some people championing Isaac Wright Jr., some people championing Andrew Yang, people championing you. Who do you see as your greatest competition in this mayor race?
Brother, I don't, man. I've always said I'm running against Eric Adams. And I know the more people out there that hear my message, hear my story, hear this New Yorker, real New Yorker, I believe that as long as I get my message out, we've outraised the whole field. We raised $8.6 million. The closest person to us is $1 million away. So you need that money to go up on radio, TV, social media, news clipping. So this is going to be a $10.8 million race. We believe we're going to get there. The polls are showing that I'm at the top of the polls. I need to continue to expand of my communication with folks. And I think everyday New Yorkers who are pushing their ways on the subways, the buses, earning a living, they're going to say, this is the kind of cat that we want. Listen, people don't have to tell me about low pay employees, man. I was a dishwasher as a child. They don't have to tell me about working your way through. I worked in a mail room. I went to school at night, 2 classes at a time. My son was born. I went down to 1. So I know what it is to grind, and I know what folks are going through. You know, there's a whole lot of summonses out there for me from jumping the turnstile because I didn't have enough for a token at that time. You know, I know the everyday struggle, and that's what people want. And my job is to get out there to the outer boroughs, speak one-on-one with folks, let them know who I am, and ensure that they know that I'm going to stand for them. Those are the people who I must reach. To me, that is my challenge, not the people that are in the campaign. I am laser focused on this race and getting my message out.
That's a great point. It does seem like you being a lifelong resident of New York State, it does seem like it's going to help you serve the community better. And clearly people are showing that because you have raised the most money in the race and you're on top of the polls. And, you know, when you got somebody like Andrew Yang, who's got such a big national profile, I thought that would help him out a lot. Maybe not.
Well, he's at the top of the polls also. Let's be clear. Both of them are. But I do want to say what I do like about Eric Adams. It's weird to me because you are part of the establishment, but you're also anti-establishment in a lot of ways. And I believe in your message of going within the system, like you said, to try to improve the system. And I do want to talk about that because I do see you out a lot. Like I've been on, we did a march together, right? And with Bishop Lamont Whitehead, and we did that together. I always see you just out giving out masks, just doing all kinds of things in the community. You haven't left New York City this whole time. You've been here on the front lines. You are our Brooklyn borough president, and you know I'm from Brooklyn and I rep that hard, but you really are out here. So I want to ask you about some of these endorsements because I was reading that, you know, we haven't heard from Carl Hastie, we haven't heard from Hakeem Jeffries. What's your relationship with them, and would something like that benefit you?
Yeah, and you know, that's interesting. And you need to, you know, you have to look at these articles and how they created. You know, I spoke with Rev. Rev reached out to me and he says, Eric, you know, I know nothing of that article. You know, no one spoke with me. The same with Carl. I communicated with Carl and, you know, others. And so people want to create this energy, because let's face it, if you would have gone back 4 or 5 years ago, they always said this: don't worry about Black candidates. They can't raise the money to run citywide, so you don't have to worry about Eric Adams. He'll never put it together. And now all of a sudden they woke up and they said, wait a minute, this guy raised more money than anyone in the field. Low dollar donors from everyday New Yorkers. This guy's at the top of the poll. This guy has a background in everything from being a lawmaker to being a law enforcement person. His message resonates. Now I'm a problem. So you're going to see articles of, hey, Eric flew to China, you know, so we need to attack him on that. You're going to see articles that, you know, here are all the top Black leaders for the Black leaders that have yet to endorse Eric. You're going to start seeing all of that because now Eric has gone from, I have crossed the lexicon. I've gone from the impossible to the possible. And now that's problematic for a whole lot of folks because people know me. And those of you who go to church, this is a Matthew 21:12 moment. I'm not going inside the temple to sit at the table and watch things done incorrectly. I'm going there to turn the table over. And folks who know this city know that Black and brown people and immigrants and other outer borough residents have not received their fair share. Think about this, Brother Charlamagne. 65% of Black children don't meet proficiency in education every year.
Hey.
Think about that. If you don't educate, you will incarcerate. And how is that normal? How is that normal that 70,000 Black children did not have their devices to go online and do their education. I mean, when you look at these numbers, you have to say to yourself, have we normalized the inability to address the needs of people in the city? We have prophetized poverty and we've normalized it, and I'm not going for it. I remember this young man came into the precinct when I was a lieutenant, and we asked him he was 11 years old, had a problem at the school. We asked him to write down the name of his street. He couldn't spell it. I said, when that happened, I said, this is a problem. That's what this city is facing. And if someone is not honest about it and understand what's going on and become unapologetic and intentional of reversing this, we're going to go into a state of being completely wrote off. And I don't want anyone telling me, well, we're going to give you $200 a week, and that's going to solve your $200 a month, and that's going to solve your problem. No, I want you to tell me we're going to educate you, we're going to empower you, and we're going to make sure that you can be part of this city. Because if you give me a fish, as you know, I eat for a day. You give me a fishing rod, I eat for a lifetime. This folks need to eat for a lifetime and generations.
That's right. My final question for you, Brother Adams. Why is Mayor de Blasio so trash?
Well, I think it's a combination. People are angry. People are upset. I think that we dropped the ball in many ways and not moving our city forward. We had many opportunities. Even look at the simple vaccination process. I spoke with his team in January and said, listen, we can't make the mistakes we made in the testing for coronavirus. We can't do it with the vaccines. I gave them a 7-point plan that all the 15 of the electors signed on to, where I said, let's go in, when you vaccinate someone, use a handheld device, not a form, where you have to write in and upload it to a database, because I'm a real-time guy. Use a handheld device, an iPhone, an iPad, a phone, punch in the data of the person you're vaccinated. So each day you will have a real analysis of the ethnicity, the gender, location of who's being vaccinated, so that you can see how you're trending if you have to correct your course. They refused to do that. We gave out 900,000 vaccines and said, oops, we forgot to give it to Black people. Oops, we forgot to give it to Spanish people, Spanish-speaking people, and other ethnicities. That's unacceptable. And that incompetency is what we have witnessed over and over in the city. And that is why people are just tired and disgruntled, because we should have done a better job of managing our assets and having an equitable distribution of resources. And the key here is real time. Our agencies, Brother Charlamagne, they operate in silos. No, there's no clear mission. We're not moving in the same direction. And that is what we need to stop doing. We have an over $90 billion budget. We have more than enough money to run this city if we are more aligned in one mission. And that's what the next mayor must do. He must unify this city and be the real leader. You saw that during COVID. Others fled, I led. I know how to lead, and I'm going to lead the city.
Well, Mayor Adams, I just want to say you're going to have your work cut out for you, because this is a hopefully post-COVID, because I'm hoping things are going to be better by then. And there's a lot of work to be done. So we'll make sure we continue to have these conversations.
Thank you very much. Good to see you all.
My brother, have a good day, man.
Take care.
Peace.
All right.